Ancient civilizations weren't just building monuments. They were confidently doing things that make modern stupidity look like a warm-up exercise. If you think our ancestors were wise, wait until you hear what they proudly considered normal. And trust me, it only gets dumber from here. 1. Ancient Egyptians believed onions could scare off evil spirits, which honestly makes me wonder what kind of demon is out there thinking, yes, I was going to possess this guy, but the salad bar is too intimidating. They buried onions with pharaohs, wore them as charms, and even stuffed them in eye sockets during mummification, because nothing says eternal glory like a produce aisle makeover. Imagine being a divine ruler, ascending to the afterlife, only to be greeted by the overwhelming aroma of a sandwich shop. And Egyptians took this seriously. To them, the concentric circles symbolized eternity. To me, it symbolizes the moment you realize your entire culture trusted the spiritual power of what is basically nature's breath grenade. But hey, if your civilization is already juggling giant stone triangles and inexplicable cat worship, what's one more sautéed superstition? And trust me, this is only the appetizer. The main course of ancient nonsense is still coming. 2. In ancient Babylon, they ran a full legal system based on trial by river, which is exactly what it sounds like. Throw someone into a body of water and let nature decide if they're innocent or guilty. If you floated, congratulations, you were guilty and sentenced accordingly. If you sank, the gods had judged you innocent, which sounds lovely until you realize innocence comes with a complimentary drowning. Imagine a justice system that basically functions like a malfunctioning pool party. The Babylonians genuinely believed this was a sophisticated method of divine truth-finding, while I'm here wondering if the gods ever got tired of being blamed for every poorly executed swim lesson. Today we rely on evidence and due process. Back then, the legal advice was, hold your breath and hope the river likes you. And yes, this is somehow not the dumbest ancient legal idea humanity produced. Stay tuned. 3. The ancient Romans had a health trend where they drank gladiator blood for strength, because nothing screams medical expertise like chugging a warm cup of someone else's last moments. Physicians, real, respected Roman physicians, swore this liquid nightmare could cure epilepsy. So after a good arena fight, the crowd didn't just cheer. Some people lined up with chalices like it was a medieval juice bar. Imagine going to the doctor with a serious condition and being told, "Have you tried sipping Greg the Gladiator?" Romans already had enough questionable ideas: lead pipes, wine as hydration, emperors on permanent ego vacation. But drinking blood for wellness puts them firmly at the top of the ancient idiots who felt committed to the bit leaderboard. And don't worry, the stupidity gets worse from here. Spoiler, it always gets worse. 4. Ancient Chinese emperors used to swallow mercury because they thought it made them immortal, which is the most darkly ironic wellness routine in history. Here, Your Majesty, drink this shimmering bowl of poison. You'll live forever. And the emperor goes, yes, obviously. Mercury was considered divine because it was shiny, rare, and had a cool liquid metal vibe. Unfortunately, the human body isn't impressed by aesthetics and immediately falls apart like a laptop dropped down a staircase. Countless emperors slowly poisoned themselves, all while boasting that they had unlocked immortality. Imagine ruling the most powerful empire on Earth, surrounded by scholars and advisors, and the best medical advice you get is from a guy waving a jar of liquid toxicity saying, "Trust me, bro." And yes, they really trusted him. For centuries, humans have always been committed to ambitious stupidity. 5. Spartans believed bathing made you weak, which explains a lot about everything we know about Spartans, including why every description of their society reads like the world's sweatiest locker room. They thought warm water softened the body and, by extension, the spirit. So you'd have warriors training, fighting, and living in a perpetual cloud of heroic funk. If a time traveler ever visited ancient Sparta, the first obstacle wouldn't be combat, it would be the smell. They prided themselves on hardship, which apparently included refusing to touch soap like it was an instrument of enemy propaganda. Meanwhile, the rest of Greece is inventing philosophy and democracy, and Sparta's like, no thanks, we'll stay unwashed and angry. And trust me, the Spartan hygiene philosophy isn't even close to the top-tier insanity of ancient grooming habits. 6. The ancient Maya believed crossed eyes were the pinnacle of beauty, and parents would literally hang beads in front of their babies' faces to make them go permanently cross-eyed. Yes, this was intentional. Yes, this was considered attractive. To the Maya, it symbolized elite status and divine favor. Nothing says chosen by the gods, like eyesight that can't pick a lane. Imagine telling your child, "Sweetheart, we want the best for your future. Now focus on this bead, and don't you dare let your pupils agree on anything ever again." People criticize modern beauty standards, but at least contouring doesn't require neurological sabotage. The Maya were genuinely proud of this look, and honestly, confidence goes a long way because they rocked the cross-eyed aesthetic with zero hesitation. And unfortunately for us, ancient beauty trends only get more horrifying. 7. Ancient Persians got drunk before making important decisions, because apparently the best way to run an empire was to operate at the same mental level as someone trying to order tacos at 2 a.m. They believed alcohol revealed the true self, so a decision wasn't considered valid until it was tested both sober and hammered. Picture a royal council where someone makes a proposal, and everyone nods seriously before saying, "All right, great. Now let's get obliterated and see if we still like it." And if they didn't? Well, then the plan was flawed. Honestly, I kind of respect the consistency, but imagine if your job performance depended on how well you argued foreign policy while slurring your words and hugging a column for balance. And trust me, this wasn't the weirdest political method on record. 8. The ancient Celts believed cutting off someone's head captured their soul, so warriors proudly decorated their homes with skull collections like macabre Pinterest boards. They hung them from saddles, stacked them in shrines, and displayed them at dinner parties like trophy centerpieces. Imagine walking into someone's home and seeing a row of severed heads and the host casually saying, "Oh, those? Just some old roommates." The Celts truly believed these heads emitted power, wisdom, or supernatural mojo, basically spirit batteries. Meanwhile, I'm thinking, maybe a bookshelf would have worked. But no, they went full Gothic home goods centuries before Halloween decor was a thing. And yes, there are cultures with even creepier home accessories waiting down this list. 9. Ancient Greeks thought wearing a pig's bladder as a hat during festivals was completely normal, which tells you everything about why Greek mythology reads like a fever dream. During certain celebrations, especially ones honoring Dionysus, people would inflate a pig bladder like a balloon and wear it as a bouncing, wobbly headpiece. I want you to picture the inventors of geometry and philosophy stumbling around drunk with animal organs on their heads, screaming about gods and wine. This is the same civilization that produced Socrates, yet apparently no one could invent a less disgusting hat. To them, it was festive. To anyone with modern eyes, it's a biohazard waiting to happen. And trust me, Greek party culture only spirals downward from here. 10. Ancient Mesopotamians believed sickness was caused by angry ghosts, which is such an aggressively unhelpful medical theory that I'm amazed humanity survived long enough to invent Tylenol. Their doctors, who were somehow considered the intellectual elite, would diagnose a fever by saying something like, "Yes, clearly a grumpy dead guy is sitting on your chest." Treatments included rituals, chants, weird poultices, and occasionally bribing the ghost with food offerings, as though spectral beings were just hungry and misunderstood. Imagine showing up to the doctor coughing, and instead of medicine, he gives you a coupon for a spiritual apology dinner. But don't worry, ancient medicine gets way worse. 11. In ancient India, some people believed stepping in cow dung brought good luck, which raises the question, was luck even worth having back then? Cows were sacred, yes, but the idea that you could improve your fortune by stomping into a steaming pile of bovine disaster feels like a prank that got wildly out of control. People intentionally smeared it on walls as protection, mixed it into building materials, and used it as a disinfectant, which is a bold stance on cleanliness, to say the least. I respect cultural tradition, but there's a big philosophical difference between revering an animal and covering your house with its digestive aftermath. And believe me, ancient civilizations weren't done weaponizing animal products for good luck. 12. Ancient Egyptians thought wearing crocodile dung as contraception would prevent pregnancy, which is both optimistic and wildly inaccurate. They mixed crocodile poop with honey and shoved it exactly where you're imagining, because apparently the crocodile was their sexual health consultant. Maybe they assumed anything that terrifying must scare sperm into retreat. Meanwhile, the only thing being prevented here was comfort, dignity, and basic human hygiene. The fact that someone willingly tested this theory is enough evidence that ancient science had absolutely no supervision. And trust me, ancient contraceptives get even worse. 13. The ancient Romans used powdered mouse bones to whiten their teeth, proving once again that Rome's greatest achievement was its confidence, not its judgment. Dentists recommended this. People paid for this. Imagine trying to flirt at a banquet while your teeth sparkle with the remains of an ex-rodent. The Romans acted like they invented civilization, yet somehow believed nothing says kissable like cremated vermin. And yes, this was considered premium dental care. Ancient orthodontics had the energy of a YouTube life hack video gone horribly wrong. 14. The ancient Hittites believed sneezing was a message from the gods, which must have made allergy season spiritually exhausting. A sneeze meant divine approval or disapproval depending on the situation, basically the universe sending cryptic notifications straight to your face. Imagine trying to make a major decision and waiting for someone nearby to sneeze like you're consulting a nasal oracle. Should we go to war? Let's check Chad's pollen count. And if no one sneezed, tough luck. The gods were offline. Truly a flawless system. 15. In ancient Japan, aristocrats judged people by how good they smelled. And I don't mean perfume, I mean natural scent. They held literal body odor competitions, where nobles sniffed each other and ranked the results like some deranged olfactory talent show. If you ever feel awkward at social gatherings, remember, at least nobody is evaluating your aroma for sport. They believed scent reflected inner virtue, which is a poetic way of saying deodorant wasn't invented yet and everyone needed a coping mechanism. And believe me, ancient social customs get even stranger from here. 16. The ancient Assyrians believed that if your king got a bad omen, the smartest solution was to temporarily replace him with a fake king, usually some random guy they dragged off the street, and then assassinate that poor stand-in so the prophecy would hit the right target. Imagine being a humble farmer just trying to harvest your barley, and suddenly you're crowned monarch, dressed in fancy robes, fed royal meals, and then promptly murdered because the stars said the ruler was doomed. And the real king? He's hiding in a basement, eating snacks, waiting for the universe to get bored. This wasn't a one-time thing. They did it repeatedly, as if fate was too dumb to notice that the real king was the one cowering behind a curtain. It's like ancient witness protection, except the witness definitely does not make it. 17. The ancient Greeks firmly believed that beans contained trapped souls, which is a pretty convenient excuse if you're trying to avoid legumes or the consequences of eating them. Pythagoreans, yes, the math guys, refused to eat beans entirely, convinced that every chickpea was basically a reincarnated cousin and that breaking wind was a spiritual emergency. Imagine attending a philosophical debate where one brilliant scholar is explaining geometry, while another is warning you that a bowl of soup is basically cannibalism. They even believed beans grew from decomposing bodies, which truly pushes the farm-to-table movement into horror territory. Honestly, if my side dish might contain someone's grandpa, I'd be cautious too. 18. The ancient Romans used to treat hangovers, not by drinking water or taking a nap like normal humans, but by eating deep-fried canaries. Yes, tiny birds, deep-fried, as medicine. Someone, somewhere, woke up after a night of wine-fueled chaos and said, "You know what would fix this headache? A crunchy songbird." And Rome collectively said, "Brilliant." It's the sort of remedy you invent when you have too much power and absolutely no shame. And of course, wealthy Romans bragged about their exotic cures like influencers showing off skincare routines. Today we have Gatorade. Back then, they had the world's saddest appetizer. 19. In ancient Mesopotamia, if you wanted medical advice, half the time the doctor didn't actually examine you. He examined your appearance in the mirror. They believed mirrors could reveal spiritual imbalances and lurking demons, like a supernatural diagnostic tool that doubled as a fashion critique. Imagine visiting a doctor for chest pain, and he stares into a polished bronze plate before saying, "Ah yes, your reflection is slightly off-center." Classic demon fatigue. This wasn't fringe theory, it was mainstream. They genuinely believed your mirror self was a co-worker in your health journey, which is hilariously optimistic considering my reflection can't even cooperate during a tired morning. 20. Ancient Egyptians shaved off their eyebrows to mourn the death of a cat. and only the cat. Not a spouse, not a parent, not a pharaoh, just the cat. The moment Mr. Whiskers clocked out, everyone had to walk around eyebrowless like confused mannequins. And God's help you if you forgot your designated morning look. The social shame alone could crush you. Meanwhile, if your uncle died, nothing. Business as usual. The priorities were crystal clear. Family is fine, but a sacred cat demands a full cosmetic meltdown. Honestly, the cats deserved it. They were probably the only ones running that civilization anyway. 21. The ancient Chinese believed earthquakes happened because a giant cosmic frog twitched underground. Yes, a frog. The earth shakes, buildings fall, people panic, and the explanation is basically, sorry, the universe's giant amphibian is having a leg spasm. This idea was considered legitimate science. Scholars wrote about it with a straight face. Imagine living in a world where your entire geological understanding is one big frog's bad muscle day. If modern scientists adopted that logic, weather reports would be wild. Expect rain tomorrow because the celestial turtle feels emotional. 22. In ancient India, doctors treated snake bites by shouting insults at the snake from a distance because apparently the reptile cared deeply about its reputation. The belief was that verbally humiliating a venomous creature could reverse its bite's effects, like a magical guilt trip. Bad snake, you coward, unbite him at once. Meanwhile, the victim is dying on the ground while his healer argues with wildlife. And somehow, this was considered a respectable medical technique. Honestly, I don't know what's worse, the treatment itself, or the fact that enough people survived by coincidence to encourage further trash talking. 23. Ancient Romans used ostrich feathers as fans, not just because they were fancy, but because they thought ostriches could absorb disease. People genuinely waved giant feathers around like germ vacuums, believing the bird had magical immunity that transferred through its plumage. Imagine sitting in a hot bath, waving an enormous feather like a dramatic runway model, and saying, "Ah yes, I am disinfecting myself." Meanwhile, real doctors today are busy inventing vaccines and antibiotics, while Rome said, what if we just copy-paste the powers of a very confused bird? 24. The ancient Celts thought mistletoe had such powerful magic that if you placed it over your doorway, enemies couldn't harm you. Which is adorable, because nothing says battle strategy like a festive houseplant. They collected it with golden sickles, treated it like holy radiation, and acted like a sprig of greenery could stop an axe. Imagine a warrior charging toward your village, sees the mistletoe, and just goes, "Ah man, almost got them this time." This is what happens when a culture mixes warfare with botanical fanfiction. 25. In ancient Persia, they believed a person's beard held his honor, which meant shaving it was basically a felony against masculinity. Kings exiled people over beard crimes. Husbands divorced their wives if someone touched the sacred facial fluff. Imagine your entire social worth depending on the thing growing out of your chin. One razor slip, and suddenly you're a disgraced nobody. Meanwhile, I can't even grow a convincing 5 o'clock shadow, so clearly I would have been banished on day 1. 26. Ancient Egyptians played board games for spiritual protection, especially a game called Senet, which was basically their version of trying to cheat fate with dice. Losing wasn't just losing, it meant your soul might struggle in the afterlife. Imagine playing Monopoly, landing on Boardwalk, and immediately drafting your will. They treated casual family game night like a theological exam. If you lose, Aunt Mirette, the gods will absolutely roast your eternity. Good luck. Honestly, stakes like these would make Uno much more interesting. 27. In ancient Japan, nobles believed that listening to incense burn could reveal your personality, which feels like astrology but with more smoke damage. They held competitions where people tried to identify scents blindfolded, and the winner was considered spiritually refined. Basically the Olympics of smelling stuff. Imagine being judged for your worthiness, based on your ability to sniff sandalwood. Meanwhile, modern humans can't even agree on whether cilantro tastes like soap, so we'd fail immediately. 28. The ancient Greeks believed that hiccups were a sign someone was talking about you romantically, which is probably the least helpful medical theory ever invented. Imagine having a major digestive issue and someone says, "Oh, look at you being adored." Meanwhile, you're choking on your own esophagus. And if the hiccups lasted too long, clearly someone had deep feelings. Honestly, if true love causes diaphragm spasms, Maybe Cupid should aim somewhere else. 29. In ancient Mesopotamia, priests diagnosed mental illness by checking which direction the patient's eyes drifted while listening to a chant. That was the test. If your gaze wandered the wrong way, congratulations, you had demons. Imagine sitting in a doctor's office and he just watches your eyeballs like a nervous chaperone. He looked left. Classic spirit possession. Forget brain chemistry. Your pupils were the real villains. 30. The ancient Chinese believed that sleeping facing north would turn you into a ghost, which is a bold claim from people who also invented the compass. They genuinely thought orientation determined your supernatural fate, like your bed was a cosmic loading screen. Imagine rearranging your bedroom daily because you're terrified of becoming a paranormal side character. Honestly, feng shui feels way less demanding after this. 31. The ancient Romans thought rubbing goose fat on your body could make you run faster, because apparently the path to athletic success was greasing yourself like poultry. Athletes covered themselves from head to toe, turning the arena into a slip and slide of misplaced confidence. Coaches encouraged it like it was cutting-edge sports science. Imagine the Olympics today adopting this method, runners gliding across the track like buttered statues. And yes, the Romans swore it worked, proving once again that ancient people were dangerously committed to bizarre ideas. And that's ancient humanity for you. Brilliant monuments built by people who thought nonsense was a daily vitamin. Drop your pick for the dumbest one, and if you want more chaos, you know what to click.